This week marks 10 years since the city of Flint switched its water source to the Flint River. It's the moment that started what's been followed nationwide, the Flint Water Crisis. And ABC 12 is chronicling the decades since that decision and the thousands of people whose lives are changed forever. The decision to make the switch was the culmination of decades of decline in the city of Flint. In 2014, an emergency manager called the shots for the vehicle city. And as our Dawn Jones heard from former Flint Mayor Dayne that set off the disaster that followed.
Decades before the people of Flint could not trust the safety of the water flowing from their tap, Flint, known as the Vehicle City, was a thriving metropolis.
Glistening new models of the famous five.
People were coming in droves looking for good-paying jobs in the automotive industry. By 1978, GM employed 80,000 people in Flint, but that would be as good as it would ever get for Flint. By the 1980s, the handwriting was on the wall. GM started a series of plant closures. Flint became its target. The final vehicles, two special edition LeSabres, rolled off the line at Buick City just after noon on June 29, 1999. By the year 2000, there were 30,000 fewer GM jobs in the city.
This is tough medicine for us, and I think it's tough medicine for everybody involved with their companies.
And Flint was in a downward spiral with a dwindling tax base, declining population, and abandoned neighborhoods. In 2002, the city had a $30 million budget deficit. Then Governor John Engler declared a financial emergency.
That was taking place when I was in Washington, D.C., working for Mayor Tony Williams.
Engler used Public Act 72, a controversial law giving the state authority to appoint an emergency financial manager in financially struggling cities.
I'm going to appoint someone who's going to serve as the mayor and the city council. So the 10 of you elected officials are now going to become one person. And by the way, that one person doesn't answer to the city of Flint. It answers up, to the treasurer, to me in Lansing.
Former Flint Mayor Dayne says the law goes against the core values of our democracy, essentially taxation without representation.
This idea that someone gets appointed and then they can make these better decisions. It's not based in evidence or history. It's really about political power and control, and it distorts.
The role of the EM is to balance the budget without regard for community impact. EMs have been mainly deployed in cities and systems that are mostly black and poor.
When we look back on everything that's happened, systemic racism was at work.
A claim backed up in a 2017 report from a government-appointed civil rights commission that concluded systemic racism helped to cause the Flint water crisis. Flint has had 4 EMs: Ed Kurtz, Mike Brown, Darnell Early, and Jerry Ambrose.
Each of those individuals moved that plan along during their time in office, not always officially, because a budget wasn't adopted until June of 2013, that set the stage for the switch. In April of 2014,
3, 2, 1.
I was surprised that the city got to that point in April of 2014. I thought it would take longer, but when the MDEQ is reviewing the testing and says it's ready for distribution, then I did. I decided as mayor that I would be at that ceremony with the assurance from the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality. I didn't have any reason to question that. There was a secret double standard that wasn't transparent. To me, it wasn't transparent to the community. I look back on that today with just an awful lot of shame. I regret that I was there, that it happened. I know why I did what I did, but I think about that all the time, and I'm always going to be ashamed of it.
He says almost immediately he started getting complaints from residents about smelly and discolored water pouring from their taps. When he brought it to the attention of the state, this, he says, was their response.
The explanation was we just had this horrible winter and the pipes froze and we had more main breaks than anyone could ever remember, and that creates the discoloration and the odor.
He recalls it being one thing after the other.
Then we get the notice that there's been too much chlorine in the system and we've got the TTHM byproduct.
It was more than a year after the switch, the summer of 2015, before he realized the true impact of the crisis.
When I get word from Dr. Mark Edwards in August about the water testing that him and these courageous, Flint citizens are out doing, that prompts Dr. Mona to take a look at the health data, not the pipe data, but what's actually happening to our babies, and sees the spike in lead poisoning.
It was a watershed moment.
And I had to get on the phone with the governor and the State Department of Treasury and the MDEQ and say, we're going to violate this emergency manager order. We don't have the $10 million, but we have no choice. We have got to get reconnected to this Detroit system.
Flint was successfully reconnected to Detroit Water in October of 2015. The following month, Walling lost his re-election bid. He left office with some victories to his credit, but it was what the water crisis taught him that stands out the most.
When democracy is undermined and it's distorted, truly catastrophic and horrible things happen. And we experience that, suffering here in Flint.
A reminder that you can watch Dawn Jones' award-winning interview with the Flint Water prosecutors on our YouTube page. They react to the historic decision by the Michigan Supreme Court, which led to all criminal charges being dropped. That's on our YouTube page. Just scan the QR code you see on your screen to go to our page and be sure to subscribe.